name's Keira Hudson. I'm predominantly a wet plate photographer, although I do dabble in other mediums. I also do film, and I like incorporating things like sewing, maybe collage, encaustic wax into my process as well. But wet plate and large format photography with this guy is probably my main passion. I'm based in Albion near Sunshine. Um, and I like to travel around and find different locations to shoot, although this year mainly been at home. So I wanted to put work into Miss Rona because I thought it was important to show that artists are still creating. I feel like it's been a bit hard on the creative industry this past year. We were ones that got shut down straight away, and I lost all my work, as I imagine a lot of others, artists and people in the performing arts and all those sections did as well. So I thought it was important to show that we're resilient and still creating work. And yeah, it's harder to knock us down. So my experience for lockdown number one was I was under the delusion that it was only going to last, say, a month or 6 weeks. So I was treating it like a vacation. And I actually didn't do that much art. I was treating it a little bit like a vacation from my own art. And I was just kind of, going for lots of walks and taking the time to do my knitting and all my other hobbies I didn't normally have time for. And so that was nice for a little bit. And then I started to go a bit crazy. And then I started to doubt myself a little more when it came to my own process. So by the time we got into the second lockdown, I was determined to make art. And so there, I've got 3 works in Miss Rona. I've got Heartache and Intubate, which are both 8x10 tin types. And then I've got the 3 Roses, which is an image that was originally shot on 120 film with my Mamiya, and I printed it out on linen and coffee stained it and did some hand embroidery. For the Intubate, I hope I'm saying that correctly. That one was pretty simple. I have a collection of my grandpa's old shutter releases, and I'm really fascinated with stuff that's medical, anatomical, stuff to do with the body. I like messing around with things like that. And so when I found these, I thought it would be really cool if they were like, kind of like feeding into my neck. And so I was like, oh, this would be great if it was somehow like photography was becoming part of my body, and it's like I'm injecting it directly into my bloodstream. It sounds a bit cliche, but I just sometimes find a prop, or it might be a costume or a backdrop, or I love using my skeleton a lot in my images, and then it kind of like an idea sparks from there. So with that one was pretty simple, and I also felt like it was nice using my grandfather's equipment. A lot of my film cameras are his cameras, so it's kind of nice to carry on that legacy. And another part of my process is I love journals. So I'm going to hold up some journals, and I'm zooming in here. You can kind of see this one here. It's a little picture that I drew beforehand. And that's a lot of how I generate ideas for my process. I put in like inspiration, and I draw little pictures, life drawings, strip tests. Jess knows that I love printing contact sheets, and I love sticking them in my journals and making notes. I get a bit obsessive, liquid light and things like that. So for my other wet plate artwork called Heartache, that one, I have a collection of x-rays from different people that I've collected. And I just had this idea that it kind of be like, half exposed on one side. And I have this cool thing. So I shoot wet plate. It's my favorite medium. This is what the plate holder looks like. And I have this little half frame dark slide. And so you put it in, and you can expose just half the frame at a time. And so I was like, oh, it'd be cool if it was, half of it was like X-ray, and then the other half I was somehow like holding something or clutching something. And I think I just picked up the rose at the last minute. Like sometimes I just grab things. So it's hard when you're like, oh, how do you think out your process? I have just a room full of stuff, and sometimes I just grab something. And I was like, yeah, that works. And both of those images, I shot them outdoors on an overcast day with wet plate. The ISO is about 0.5 compared to like film, which might be 100 ISO, 400 ISO. So it's about 1 or 2 seconds. So it's a much slower process. Part of the reason I really enjoy working with wet plate, it slows me down and I can just, think through it. I really like using myself because I don't have to kind of explain my thoughts to someone else. I can just kind of move through it. Long exposures are great because I can kind of use light in my body to create light trails or feel my way across it. So sometimes a lot of my shooting can be instinctual. Like some of it I think out a lot and I write in journals. Other ones I just on the day can think, oh, might be great if I just use this, or how am I feeling? What if I'm screaming and moving around? Can play it by ear on the day. It's just feeding into my emotions and things like that. And one interesting thing I wanted to say actually with the intubate one was I actually used bright blue tape, but it shows up white because the wet plate process is very sensitive to blue. But if I'd been wearing red, it would have shown up black because red's on the opposite side. So I just thought that's a little interesting thing if you're interested in wet plate, learning a bit about it. And so this is what the plate is. This is an aluminium plate. On the back it's silver, on the front it's black. And there's also, my preference is black glass. Black glass is so gorgeous. It is also very expensive. So sometimes cost can really come into why I decide things. And then also you have clear glass. So this is the same image, but you have to put it in front of black for it to read properly. So that's also how you can create wet plate negatives, which I'm hoping to play around a bit with more. Oh, and so next one I want to talk about was the 3 Roses. That was shot on the 120 film with my grandpa's Mamiya. And I really had ideas that I want to start incorporating other things. I studied printmaking at uni, so I love the idea of layering. I've done lots of workshops at both Noir and Gold Street Studios, and I love just having like this umbrella of all different processes and just getting experimental and like putting them all into one pot and kind of seeing what works. And going back to what I was saying before, it can either be pre-thought out. I'll think, oh, wet plate would really suit this, or I should print this on fabric, or I should print it on paper and then sew into it. Or it might be, I just decide, what if I rip this up and see if it looks good. A lot of stuff I don't show because I think it is rubbish, and that just goes into my journals. Maybe that's why I love my journals so much, because I know people don't really see them. But yeah, I think 3 Roses is what came out of me experimenting and putting a few different things down. And yeah, I thought I'd just give it a go, put something different out there that's not wet plate. Lockdown 2, definitely, it was completely different. I think because in lockdown 1, there was kind of end dates. Lockdown 2, there wasn't so much an end date, or it kept getting pushed. So it was a little, I did feel like I lost a little bit of, I don't know, faith or faith that we'd get out. That's why I just started forcing myself to make photos, because